is that ease of use, and the understanding is there that what do the data from a different tool. So of course I'll not steal the show here. I'll give it back to Teja. Go ahead, Teja, if you want to share more details
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. I'm just asking to share my screen.
Yeah, one second. There you go. Let
Great.
me
Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
I can see your screen. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, just backing up on what Ritesh has been saying. We were founded in 2017. Obviously, we're based in the Netherlands. Relatively, in terms of a technology or a WFM company, yeah, we are a little bit smaller. We have 80 people now, but we have a very strong culture, and yeah, we work as a team. We are WFM professionals who are contributing to build WFM software. So we have essentially two parts where we have about 40 consultants working in the field of workforce management in the Netherlands and even in Belgium a little bit, and in Germany, in terms of some of the assignments that we get during Corona. Some of it is online, obviously, but yeah, we're a dynamic scale up company. We recently also gained a sizable investment to further grow our software product and company here in the Netherlands. A company from Amsterdam has invested into StrateX to further speed up the building of the WFM software, which what Raymond is the product owner for. Next one. Yeah, as I was saying, we've got 80 employees, we've got 60 plus customers, and even through Corona in 2020, we had a 200% growth in our company. This is a small look at our product portfolio in terms of what we offer at StrateX currently. Consultancy and operational expertise there, tied together, touching different parts of the market. Consultancy, we're leading more towards change in WFM and sort of having new strategies in place and looking at team leaders and operational leaders as a whole. And we also have a slightly different proposition in there, but from a WFM point of view, that's what that touches. The operational expertise, or our WFM professionals, are our forecasters, our planners, our traffickers, so on and so forth. So that is the operational side of the business. And we've also recently launched a new initiative within the Netherlands WFM market, which is WFM as a service, where we completely go and facilitate the entire cycle of workforce management. For our clients, from obviously they give us the average handle time or service levels they would like to meet, and it is totally up to us to be able to deliver those results that they're looking for. We're very close to also piloting this over here with a possible customer, so we're very excited about that. In terms of on the right hand side, we also offer business and WFM scans. So this is also part consultancy, but we basically have very experienced personnel like yourselves in our company who have been doing workforce management for 15, 20 years. Some less, but they really understand the whole implementation process and have a really good overview of how WFM should be functioning in a company, basically. And we do a stock take. We go in and we provide a scan of, okay, hey, what could be improved and where and how, and try to further optimize your workforce management cycle and your operational stuff, basically, in a company. And the other two parts are the workforce management suite, in terms of our software. That's our core product that we're building, and which is Raymond is a product owner for. I'll show you in another slide. Obviously, we're trying to fulfill the whole WFM cycle, and how we go about doing that. Demand planning and forecasting is a sub-product that we've recently built. Raymond has also been working on that, and that is purely forecasting based. We started our workforce management journey with the forecasting module because we understood that that was a pain point for a lot of customers that are out there. I believe that Raymond has got a very good example that he's going to further share with you. And he'll also elaborate on, obviously, his vision on where the product is going and so on. But forecasting was the base of our product, and we really try to do that well within our product, and that's definitely one of our USPs. We have multiple partnerships for our company, for StrateX. Obviously, our headquarters is in the Netherlands, where we also have some personnel in Pakistan, Turkey. We work with Gartner in London, Quantigo, and a couple of local partners and a Scandinavian partner in TM Group. And essentially, we're also wanting to expand towards India. We're very interested in growing our business and creating good working partners in Asia Pacific as well. So, yeah, that's also part of the reason why we're here with Ritesh as well today. In terms of our modules and how our product looks like, given the time frame today, we're not going to go into the whole product picture, but Raymond's got a good example on the forecasting, and he can elaborate a little bit more than this on the other stuff. But we're basically going from forecasting to capacity planning to pool management and scheduling and adherence. And how we decided upon these modules was that our CEO at the time, Suleiman, he has been working different assignments within the WFM market, and he saw a gap basically in terms of WFM software and where it was falling short. And he saw that as an opportunity. He's worked for T-Mobile, some very big Dutch banks, so on and so forth. And that's where we started with the forecasting. And that was producing really good results. And we had a few customers, and the customers were saying, well, why don't you guys build the rest of the modules in the WFM cycle? And, that would be great. So that's kind of how the journey started with our software 2 years ago. Basically from forecasting, then we decided, okay, hey, capacity planning is a bit of a miss in a lot of other products, so let's try and get that in. Pool management, obviously, you guys know, schedule and adherence is stock standard. So that's what the modules look like within our system, and how does it work? Well, this is a small diagram of how we look at it in our StrateX overview, from forecasting to capacity to pool to then availability skills, and you can do obviously intraday changes and so on and so forth within the software. If you have questions around this, Raymond is the perfect guy to be able to explain it in a minute. To give you a little bit more overview about our software, we're AI-driven, all-in-one software created by workforce management people. Obviously, we're in a market of legacy players, the likes of people that have been in this market for a very long time, but we're an up-and-coming scale-up who have a very good product that we're proud of. We're a native cloud solution. We run in Azure. We can also put it into a different cloud if need be, depending on your company needs and so on and so forth. We work with flexible licensing models with workforce management as a service. We're also working with a model you only pay for the hours that you schedule as well. So when we say we are flexible with licensing and pricing and so on, we really do mean that, because I think this is quite a dynamic market. There's a lot of options out there. So we have our customer at the forefront of our mind, and we try to facilitate them as best as possible. In saying that, we try to treat them as partners and work together to also deliver a bit more of a tailor-made solution that works for your environment, might not work for a couple of others. I think at this stage we're still in that flexible area of being able to factor in different requests, and our turnaround time for building is much faster than the other legacy players that are out there. We work in 2-week sprints, so Raymond's very busy managing a team. Also, not only here in the Netherlands, but we also have we build offshore as well with a much bigger team too. Initially, what we've seen from our projects with our forecasting to our other modules that are being used, we have improved 5% improvement towards our clients on a regular basis. So in terms of your saving costs or your ROI and things like that, we do factor those into our scenarios. These are some of our clients, both software and consultancy mixed, but there are some big names within. There are a couple of banks and a couple of big telecommunications personnel companies as well. So, hey, that is a small introduction and an overview of what StrateX is. This is actually our office to the left there in the Netherlands, in Capella. So we're on the 9th floor. But yeah, that is my email. It's teja@stratex.nl, and also my phone number. Ritesh also has all my details, and if you obviously need to contact us or would like to get in touch with us, you're more than welcome to. That's a small intro about StrateX, and I'm going to hand it over to Raymond to take you through our presentation of our software.
Yeah, thanks, Teja. Like Teja mentioned in his story, we sort of bought this software approximately. We started building on it 2 to 3 years ago, and then it only had really forecasting. And what we've built into it is capacity and scheduling now. What we really believe and what we try and differentiate from others is that if your forecasting is done well, then you can do your capacity well. And if you do your capacity well, then automatically your schedule becomes a lot better because everything has been done correctly beforehand. And that's also why we spend a lot of time with our clients setting up the environment, making sure that all the work that's coming in is in there, and that we have as much data in our system about those queues, about the calls that are coming in, so that we can start analyzing that. And what I want to do today is show you an actual practical example that we had. I've of course anonymized it, but this is a real live scenario that we had with a client where we helped them analyze their data, analyze the situation, and figure out, hey, how can we help you? How can we make sure that your forecast becomes better, which will just improve your entire process because now you can actually prepare well for the actual day that this is going to occur. Well, I'm also going to try and share my screen.
Yep. Just let me know when you do that. I will enable it. Okay. I think
you guys can see my screen
now. Wait, I have to change the.
Yeah, I think you can.
Yeah.
There you go.
So the first thing we always do with the clients when we come in, like I mentioned, is set up all the work queues that they have. And a work queue is just a type of media that is coming in, and we want to know something about it so that we can configure it correctly. So it can be, for instance, that this is consumer calls or this is business calls. We configure that. We say to the system what type of media type that is, because that helps us also in understanding what is this queue about. But also sometimes we have different algorithms in our scheduling, because you can imagine that if we use call or when we use chat or we use email, there is a different type of handling to that. And we want to make sure that when we move further into the process in our system, we can apply that to the queue. So I tell the system an average hang-up time if I have that. So how long is my client on average willing to wait? That's used for our simulation. I also tell to the system on what interval my data is going to be sent. So for instance, if I know that my system is giving me data per 50 minutes, then I put in 50 minutes. If I know I only get data per day, then we put in day, because that is how we can make sure that we understand how the data is going to be sent to us and what we want to forecast. And then I can tell the system what I want to do. I tell the system either I want to generate a volume or an average handling time, or I want to use the fixed value. The reason that is in this system is because we quite often have clients who tell us, well, my volume data is pretty good, but my average handling time is all over the place, and I don't really have a forecast or want to use a forecast for my average handling time. So I just want to assume that each call will take 5 minutes, so that's 300 seconds, and I will just forecast my volume. So we have that option in our system to just say, okay, I don't want to do anything with this. The business days, here we tell the system, okay, what are the business days of the queue? What days are we open and from what time to what time? Which is also, again, really important when we start importing data or we start forecasting. So we know, hey, what date range should we expect values and should we try and forecast for you? And here on the right-hand side, you can see there are forecast drivers and non-service days. Non-service days are pretty straightforward. All national holidays or day that you're closed, you put them in. So for instance, if I open up this, I can put in Christmas. I can say to the system, Christmas, I'm closed. I don't want to do anything with that. And the forecast drivers, these are actually the thing I want to show you what we can do with those. We can set up forecast drivers, and forecast drivers are things outside of the contact center, so outside of the people who are actually doing the work, that will affect the amount of volume we are going to get. And for instance, some examples that we have are that you can have marketing emails or you can have Black Friday, which will cause an increase in the amount of calls you get. And we configure that to the queue so that we know, okay, on these dates, we expect a peak or a dip. It can go either way, right? It can be going upwards or downwards. We configure it, and then the system understands, okay, I'm going to expect different data here. So I set all of that up. I save it. I won't do that now because I already have one set up. And I get a complete overview. Okay, what have you set up? What is being used within what you have in your environment? What we then do is we start to import our data. So we usually get ACD data system or a different type of system that gives us the data. Okay, what happened over the past period? In this scenario, I actually have 2 years of data. We usually prefer to have 3 years of data because it gives us a better pattern and we can predict better. But in this case, I've imported data from 2019 until, last month. And what the system basically tells us is does an analysis of this data. And this is really important to us because we don't want to just give us your data, we put it in the system, and we assume that data is perfect. No, we know that every time you have data, there is going to be outliers. There is going to be data that doesn't fit the pattern of your data. That is the analysis that our system does. And in this case, the data the system has imported the 10,000 values, and within that 10,000 values, it has found 752 outliers, which you can also see here. And all of these outliers are highlighted, and the system tells us, okay, this is the actual value, which is shown in red, and the green value is actually the value that it thinks it should be. So it tells us, okay, this value is up there, but I expect it to be lower. And you can see that quite often here, it is suggesting the value should be lower, but you can also see a couple of times it suggests it should be higher. You also get here an overview of all the rows, and I can again see, okay, this is the imported value, so what our data tells us, but the system suggests 34 on this date. And this is just based on analysis, on pattern recognition, saying, all right, this value I expect 92, but you gave me, I expected 34, but I got 92. That seems like a big deviation. There is a configuration for that in our system. We have set that up for everyone. It's not something you configure yourself, but the system looks for a deviation that is twice as big as the expected value. And then the user can do two things. It can say, okay, I'm just going to accept it. Then you don't need to do anything. The user can say, well, actually, I think it should be somewhere in between. So for instance, I can say, okay, this should be 62. Or I can say, I just want to ignore it. And that means I'm going to ignore the suggested value. I just want you to take in the imported value. If you've done all of that, you click continue, which is currently all the way at the bottom. And then the data is imported into our system. And this is basically the moment that we can start forecasting for the queues. What we usually do is we set that up. Here you can see that each template, we have one queue, but we can also set this up to, for instance, combine some queues. So for instance, we can say, okay, I want a new one, and I want to forecast WhatsApp, and I want to forecast consumer in one go. Then you get an aggregated forecast of these two. We still forecast them separately, so you can zoom in on those, That's not a problem. But then we are going to say, okay, this is probably together, and we want to keep it that way. And what I want to really show you is that when I set up the queue that I'm using as an example, I also assumed the marketing mail. And again, this is a real life scenario. We knew that each day this client was sending out marketing email. And what we basically did is we said to them, okay, just tell us on what dates you are sending out marketing email and how much emails are you sending out to the clients. So we don't need to know what is the impact on your volume. We just want to know how much emails are you sending out. And here you can already see that each day almost in 2021, but also in 2020, is set up with a marketing email. And on all these days, the client said, I'm sending out marketing emails. And here you can see the actual value, which is the actual amount of emails that we have sent out. Now, what I did for this example is I actually first created a forecast in our system using the regular data, no driver. You can see here in the black is the actual volume, and here in the blue is the forecasted volume. And you can see that even though across the year we're we're not that far off, but here you can see there is peaks, and then we are actually starting to see quite a big deviation. And there are big peaks and dips in the call forecast call, and we don't really understand it, but we can see, okay, in 2021 our forecast is not that accurate. But again, when we said to the client, okay, just tell us what could be driving these peaks. So we set up a forecast driver, and then we redid that exact same forecast using the system. All we did was input it here on the calendar and what marketing email are we sending out on what days and what do you expect for the future. And then this was our new forecast. And you can see here that almost all the peaks are now being included. It's able to forecast these perfectly. It's able to see, okay, now then I expect it to go this higher, lower, higher, lower. There are still a few of deviations in here that we find interesting, especially these big dips. So these will be further points that we discuss with the clients. We start to look at and we say, okay, just tell us what could have happened on this date and this moment that could have caused this. Then we see, can we make it into a forecast driver, or should we maybe take this out as an outlier? Is this maybe an outlying value that will never occur again? Because then we can put that out, and the next time we won't be using it for a forecast. And here you can clearly see that if we use drivers in our system, then the difference it makes on our forecast is just gigantic, and we can really start to predict, okay, this is what we actually expect to occur at these moments. And again, this forecast is used within our system. We use this for capacity templates so that we can see, okay, how much people do we expect to need? And we also use this towards scheduling. So this is used for our entire system. You can just say to the system, for this week, for instance, I want to use forecast version 2. And then we reuse that. And that means that we will schedule the right amount of people at the right time. And this is really where we try and focus with our clients when we implement. Okay, don't just implement our system, don't just put it in there, but let us help you analyze your situation, make a good configuration, and from that we can do a good forecast, create a good capacity plan, and then go into the scheduling. And what we have noticed quite often, and we also see this in the records coming, is that people are focused on scheduling because that seems like the end point, and people want to get there. But we really believe that this area, this will really improve your environment, but also really create that difference in results and that cost reduction because you're doing the right things at the right time. That was my demo, I think. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Raymond.
Yeah,
This is Ijaz. So I have a question regarding that. So as far as the forecasting is concerned, it's usually that we get the historical data from the background, and as we know that the different companies are using different telephony platforms. So how our software is enough capable to connect with the different telephony system, how easy it is, how the connector works, and what is the procedure for that? Because this is the
Yeah.
biggest thing that, yeah.
Yeah, so we have several options already out of the box available to us. We have connected with some of the bigger solutions such as Genesis, Mitel. We've done. There are a couple of out there that we have already done. Anywhere 365. We've also done. I will be honest on that front. We quite often still run into new systems, and what we then do is, okay, tell us what you want to do. Do you want us to connect to that system using the API of that system, and then we build it for you? Or do they want to just send us the data, and do we just have to open our doors and then they can send it? But we can do both ways. So we have an API available on our end that they can connect to and send us data, or quite often the bigger solutions, but even the smaller these days, have an API available, and then we just communicate to them, okay, can you open up your door, give us a code, and then we grab the data from those systems. Um, it really depends on the client, of course, and the distributor on that end. But
Mhm.
quite often we are able to connect within 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So, one thing connected to this. So, the thing that I'm looking at my space right now is the adherence piece. So, if my telephony system is enough responsive to the my workforce management tool, then I will be able to see the adherence what the people are doing. And nowadays, when we are working remotely, it is quite evident to keep a close eye on the adherence piece as well. So, what is the refresh rate that the software is taking from the telephony system and can give me an instant analysis or a picture what is going on actually on the remote system.
Yep.
Yeah. So our system currently does have the adherence module, so we are able to grab the status information from the ACD system. We do a mapping on our end, and then we can see live what is going on. It refreshes every 10 to 15 seconds. So every 10 to 56 seconds, you see what was scheduled and what is actually happening. What we are still working on is giving insight to that from a dashboard so that the user can see the workforce management professional can really see, okay, how am I doing across the day, right? Because most of the time he also wants to see how is my day been going, because right now only tells me what is happening in the moment, but maybe across the entire day I'm doing really good, or maybe really badly, and then I should probably keep a closer eye on it. But also give that insight to the user so that he can see, all right, I as an employee can see I'm not really close to my adherence, so maybe I should pay a bit more attention to following my schedule and making sure that I do the right thing in the right time. We are still working on that. That is still on our roadmap to further develop. Right now, what we do offer is the adherence screen where we connect, the status is visible, and you can see the moment right now.
Yeah, makes sense. So
Great.
definitely, just to let you know, I have actually seen the tool. I got a demo, and definitely all the necessary modules are there. Today we just displayed the forecasting module because that's the most strong module I have witnessed so far. With the cleaning of the anomalies. Um, and then definitely, I have seen the real-time screen also, all web-based. There's also a portal where agents can submit information like the leave swaps and all. So the whole suite is there, as you would expect in a WFM tool. But today, because of the limitation of time, we may not be able to display everything, right?
So I
So,
have one question.
go ahead, Jagan.
Ray, it's very interesting, and I'm fascinated with the outlier management and normalization process, right? So, I haven't seen the recommendation part in terms of normalization, and you're recommending. Say, in the instance that you showed, the outlier was a 94 volume, and the recommendation was 34. So, I am here interested in what mechanism that you're using and how you define how did identify
Yeah.
what is the recommendation, so what is the mechanism that is used.
Yeah,
So
so basically what the system does is using the data that lies before that point, it just looks and basically does a quick forecast. So it says, okay, I have all these data points and then I expect this one based on the week, the month, the year, the seasonality to say, okay, I expect a 32, but you're importing a 96. And then it says, okay, well, that seems like a very big outlier. Again, the differentiation is somewhere about around two. So it's 2 times as big. So then it says, okay, I expect this to be an outlier. And then for the next data point, it does the same thing. So it grabs all the data points applied before that, makes a forecast for that one data point, and then says, okay, well, what do I expect? What is the actual value? And that's how it recognizes the outlier.
right.
And it keeps
So
doing that all the way across the data set, which is also why our import process usually takes quite a while if you're importing 3 years of data on 50 minutes interval, because we have to do this process constantly. But it does really help you because we believe that this will really make the data accurate. Imagine if you had an interruption of service because of a power outage. Yeah, you don't want
Right.
that in your data because you can't predict a power
Absolutely.
outage. So you want to take that out and you just want to say, okay, this is the value, the suggested value is probably correct. I'm going to use that for my forecasting because next time I don't expect a power outage. And that's where we try and really differentiate ourselves in this area specifically to say, yeah, that's what you need to do. So we're not
Absolutely.
trying to automate your forecast really. What we're trying to do is give you the tools that will give you the generated forecast, and that gives the forecaster far more time to analyze the data and analyze the situation. Why is this potentially an outlier? What happened on that day?
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Thank you.
Kiran, do you want to ask any question? Or
No, I was more interested from a forecasting module perspective because you did tell about forecasting. Because if you look at majority of the industry uses like a nice uses weighted average. What's a module that you incorporated? Second thing is the normalization technique that you used. What is it? Is it a coefficient of variation that you used for normalizing and finding an outlier?
For the first part, what I can say about it is that there is an R library behind this, which is quite an often used algorithm for predicting uh, these kind of calls. We do use a customized version of that. We've actually worked with a professor in Boston who helped us with making the right configuration so that it matches a call center. So we have done quite a bit of customization in the backend, of course, to make sure that it matches our specific needs. Um, for the second part of your question about the normalization, I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure what you're asking.
No, I think you were able to predict there were 780 plus odd outliers so over
Yeah,
beta. So, what's the normalization method that you consider? Because sometimes it could be a seasonal pattern itself because you see the recurrence happening in the first year, second year, and third year. And,
yeah.
it's seen as a, exponential improve, the trend seems when I look at the graph, it seems consistently recurring over a period of time.
Yeah. The thing is there that, of course, the data set that I used for this example or this actual client situation was that they gave us 30-minute data. And that, of course, causes far more values to be forecasted and also causes a big deviation because sometimes if the day pattern is, for instance, saying 30, 30, 30, 30, and then suddenly there is a 50 in there, that seems like a very big deviation based on the day. So that's why when you're looking at these bigger data sets, and especially 10,000, as long as we see the data where there is, and this is more a human process, there's nothing in the system that says, okay, this is the maximum amount, or then it should be normalized. But if we see more than 10% outliers, we usually say, okay, this seems like a bit too much. So we should maybe just look at your data in general, or maybe start aggregating it to hour level or day level, because your data is just not consistent. It's too variable. And that's also a process that we try and help the clients. But I will be honest, if the system just predicts this should be this the value and that's the actual value, then it does take into account the seasonality. It does take into account the yearly pattern. But that's also why I said we need 3 years of data because that's when we can really see this pattern occur. What we see often happen is people import data for 3 months and then we can't predict the trend or the seasonality. Yeah, that every time you now import data, it's going to tell you it's an outlier because if you have an upward trend suddenly, the system needs to adjust for that. And what we have seen from our experience and from testing is that within 3 weeks, the system has recognized that new trend. So if you import your data then for 3 weeks long, then the system recognizes that upward trend and then will start predicting that. And as long as it keeps going up, it will be yearly. But if it goes back down, then it will understand the next time, okay, this is probably a seasonality. So it's within this period of time. So it really depends a little bit on the configuration and the data that the client can offer. What we usually recommend is if you don't have the data, then just give us what you have and let's start building the data. Just don't make a long-term forecast then, because we already know we probably can't predict what's going to happen next year, but we can predict what's going to happen next week based on the current trend and based on the current situation. And then within a year of time, we'll have a year of data, and then we can start looking at long-term forecasts again.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And I have one more question. Um, you have the forecasting module. What about the campaign management? When I say campaign management, there is a regular trend, and there is a marketing strategy or a new acquisition
Yeah.
that kicks in. Is there a module separately that run can parallelly and show a combined view? Today, what happens is in majority of the tool, we may have to do it manually, do it on spreadsheet and upload it onto the tool to get that
Yeah.
visibility. Is that something that's available on you as a capability?
So there are a couple of options in that area. We can set up a work queue that has a start date and an end date, and then we say, okay, we expect the campaign to last from this period to that period. But that does, of course, mean that that queue specifically doesn't have any data because we don't, and so it's hard to forecast. So usually there is a discussion going on here. Okay, is this part of a specific skill of people, and do we just want to add a driver to that queue, or do we actually want to create a separate queue? Is it a separate skill, and do you want to see that separately within your forecasting? Depending on that answer, we use the configuration, but in both scenarios, of course, the situation is you can't use a forecast driver without historic data because if you add a forecast driver in the future with an impact of 100, because we are sending out 100 emails, and there is no historic data, then we don't know what the impact is going to be at all because we only know, well, you're sending out 100 emails. We don't see any change in historic data, so the impact is zero. So we do need a couple of data points for the driver to start predicting how much impact will this have on your forecast. For the work queue configuration, we can, of course, create an Excel sheet where a forecaster can say, this is what I expect to happen. And then we just import that. Then we see, of course, the actual data. And then we can start saying, okay, we maybe need to adjust our forecasting. But again, this is a process where we can forecast, but for forecasting, we need historic data. So we need something in our system. We need to create something that tells the system, okay, this is what we expect to happen, or this is what happened in the past.
Thank you.
Okay. Makes sense. Any other questions? Anyone? I believe there was a question from the audience. Let me quickly check. Ram had a question about um, is there an interface for consultants? Let me see if I can bring that up. Yeah, it should show up on the screen now. Is there an interface for consultants as well? I already answered that, yes, there's a web interface. I believe that is the correct answer, right? You can.
Yeah, there is the same website works for the agents. If that's other consultants, then that will also work. So that's available for them. What the portal actually offers to them is their private schedule. They can also see the group schedule of all the other agents if we enable that, and they can also initiate shift swapping from that same portal. And what we are actually going to release within the next 2 to 3 weeks is our mobile app. So then from our website, you can actually download an app on your phone, and you can use that also to see your schedule, give your availability. So when do you want to be scheduled? Again, if it's enabled. Or the third one, submit leave requests. So when do you want to be off?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's the typical set of features that you would expect in a web portal where agents can exchange information, ask for leaves, right? I
Yeah.
believe, yeah, so that is already in place. I believe that answers that question. So I'll just check with the StrateX team if you have anything else, or we can then proceed to our next topic for this.
Yeah, no, thank you for having us on. Appreciate your time as well, and to everyone watching as well. So, yeah, I think on a finishing note, as seen in the presentation, yeah, we're a scale-up company that is moving at a pretty fast rate within this space. So yeah, if you have any questions and want to see more of the system or anything like that, please reach out to Ritesh or to myself, and we'll definitely get back to you and yeah, and go forward from there. Maybe in the future we can also arrange a more detailed session as well. Sorry, can't hear you.
Thank you very much, Teja.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
thank
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you,
you,
Ray and
Teja.
Deja.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. Great stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Thanks
Thanks,
for having us
guys.
Bye.
on.
Have a good
Cheers.
one.
Bye bye.
See you later. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye bye.
Okay, so that was a great demo from StrateX about the WFM tool.